The organs swelled white roses trembling in my sweating hands. Any reason these two should not be joined? The priest asked. Silence. Then the doors burst open. My fiancé Mark strode out, veil of my sister's dress trailing behind him like a surrender flag. My mother followed, whispering loud enough for the front pews. She's stronger, Mark. Better for your future. I stood at the altar in a $12,000 gown alone, while 200 guests gasped. Cameras flashed. The internet crowned me the jilted bride by midnight. I vanished. No tears, no interviews, just gone. 10 years later, the ballroom of the Grand Meridian glittered with crystal and revenge. I hosted the gala for my charity, now worth millions. My sister and Mark walked in arm, thinking an invitation meant forgiveness. They froze mid-step. Because the man at my side, tall, silver-templed hand, possessive on my waist, wasn't just my husband. He was the billionaire investor who'd quietly bought their failing company. And the judge who'd just signed their foreclosure papers. Mark's face drained white. My sister's champagne slipped from her fingers, shattering like her lies. I smiled, raised my glass. To family reunions. Keep watching. The betrayal was only the prologue. The twists. They'll gut you. The payoff. Pure ice-cold satisfaction guaranteed by the final frame. My name is Emma Carter. 38 years old piano teacher in a quiet little town where nobody asks too many questions. For the past 10 years, I've raised my daughter Lily alone, scraping by on lesson fees, and the stubborn belief that music can mend anything, even a heart shattered by family. Tonight, though, I'm stepping back into the house that once slammed its door on us, the one with the manicured lawn and the brass knocker polished to a spiteful gleam. The driveway curved like a smile I didn't trust. I parked my dented sedan behind my father's gleaming Lexus and killed the engine. Lily bounced out first, her sneakers scuffing the gravel backpack slung over one shoulder. She was 10, going on fearless dark curls, escaping the braid I'd wrestled into place that morning. I smoothed my thrift store dress, navy cotton, nothing fancy, and reminded myself this was only dinner. One meal. A truce, my mother had called it in her clipped voicemail. 10 years of silence broken by a single invitation. I wasn't sure which of us had surprised the other more. Inside the foyer smelled of lemon polish and old money. Crystal sconces threw fractured light across the marble floor, the same floor where I'd once practiced scales on an invisible keyboard, while my parents entertained lawyers and surgeons. My father stood at the foot of the staircase, silver-haired and ramrod straight, in a blazer that cost more than my monthly rent. He nodded once the way men do when words feel dangerous. My mother appeared from the dining room, pearls glowing against her cream silk blouse, smile practiced and thin. Emma. She said my name like a question she already knew the answer to. Her gaze flicked to Lily, lingered, then returned to me. You're late. Traffic, I lied. We'd sat in the car for 20 minutes while I coached myself not to turn around. Lily saved me. Grandma, Grandpa, look. She unzipped her backpack and pulled out a glossy flyer, the America's Got Talent Kids logo blazing across the top. Auditions are next month in the city. I'm going to sing the song I wrote. My parents exchanged a glance sharp enough to cut glass. My father cleared his throat. Come. Dinner's waiting. The dining room hadn't changed. Mahogany table set for 4 china so delicate it seemed to apologize for existing. Silver candelabra flickered, casting shadows that danced like accusations. We took our seats, me opposite my mother Lily, beside me my father at the head like a king presiding over a kingdom he no longer recognized. The maid served roasted chicken and asparagus in silence. Conversation tiptoed around the edges. The weather, the neighbor's new pool, my father's golf handicap. Lily waited until the plates were half empty before she tried again. I practice every day after school, she said, voice bright as the candles. Miss Jenkins says my pitch is perfect. And the song, it's about people who don't believe in you at first, but then they do. My mother set her fork down with a click. Lily, darling, those shows are for children with advantages, private coaches, stage parents. Her eyes slid to me. Not little girls from... She stopped herself, but the word hung in the air anyway, poor. Lily didn't flinch. I have Mom. She's the best coach. My father sipped his wine. Dreams are expensive, young lady, and often disappointing. The words landed between us like stones. I felt them sink into my stomach, heavy and cold. 10 years ago, those same stones had been hurled at me. You'll never make it without us. You're throwing your life away. I'd packed one suitcase, and Lily still a bump under my ribs, and walked out into the night. I'd sworn I'd never let them hurt her the way they'd hurt me. But here we were. I opened my mouth to defend her, to remind them that talent doesn't check bank balances. But Lily's small hand found my knee under the table. She squeezed once. When I looked at her, her eyes, my eyes, but brighter, held a certainty I hadn't felt in years. My mother leaned forward, voice syrupy with concern. Emma, surely you don't encourage this. The rejection alone. Rejection builds character, I said quietly. It was the first full sentence I'd spoken since we arrived. My father snorted. Character doesn't pay for piano lessons. Lily's chin lifted. It will when I win. The room went still. Even the candles seemed to pause. My mother's smile faltered. My father's eyebrows rose in something between amusement and disdain. I waited for the explosion, the lecture, the reminder of every mistake I'd made since the day I refused to give Lily up for adoption. Instead, Lily pushed her chair back and stood. May I be excused? I have homework. My mother blinked. Of course, sweetheart. Lily kissed my cheek, whispered, I'm okay, Mom, and left the room with the flyer clutched to her chest like a shield. The silence she left behind was thicker than the gravy cooling on my plate. My father broke it. She's spirited. Like you. The engine coughed again as we rolled onto the county road, headlights carving tunnels through the dark. Lily's silhouette stayed pressed to the window, her breath fogging the glass in slow, deliberate circles. I kept my eyes on the white line, but the mansion's glow lingered in the rearview mirror like a bruise that refused to fade. My hands tightened on the wheel, knuckles pale, and the past, always waiting for a crack in the armor, slipped through the silence and took the passenger seat. I was 22, the first time I played Carnegie Hall's practice room, fingers dancing across a Steinway that cost more than my parents' mortgage. Juilliard had scouted me at 16, plucked me from our sleepy suburb because I could make a piano weep in languages no one taught. Professors called me a prodigy. Critics used words like luminous and inevitable. I believed them. I believed everything back then. Ryan Holtz believed it too. He sat in the front row of my senior recital navy suit, tailored to perfection, eyes the color of storm-lit steel. His family owned half the commercial real estate in Manhattan. His smile owned the room. After the final chord, he waited by the stage door with a single white rose and an invitation to dinner at Le Bernardin. I said yes before I knew his last name. We moved fast, too fast, my mother warned, but her warnings always sounded like envy. Ryan proposed 6 months later on the rooftop of his parents' penthouse, diamond flashing under a sky thick with stars. I wore the ring like a promise that talent and love could conquer anything. I was wrong. The pregnancy test turned positive 3 weeks before graduation. I told Ryan in Central Park, hands trembling around a paper cup of decaf. He went very still, the way people do when the script suddenly changes. Then he smiled, tight practiced, and said we'd figure it out. That night, he drove me to his parents' estate in Connecticut. The house was all glass and marble, cold as a museum. His mother greeted me with a cheek kiss that never touched skin. His father poured scotch and asked how soon I could resolve the situation. I thought resolve meant marriage. It didn't. Ryan's mother laid out the options like a PowerPoint, discreet clinic, generous settlement. My signature on a non-disclosure. When I refused, her smile thinned to a blade. You're confusing gratitude with entitlement, dear. Ryan stood behind her, hands in pockets, staring at the Persian rug. He never looked at me again. I went home to tell my parents. My father was in his study reviewing contracts under a green banker's lamp. My mother arranged lilies in a crystal vase, humming something tuneless. I laid the ultrasound photo on the coffee table between us, grainy, miraculous, undeniable. My father's face folded like wet paper. My mother dropped the vase. Water bled across the hardwood, soaking the sonogram until the tiny heartbeat blurred. "You will fix this," my father said. Not a question. "I'm keeping her," I answered. The silence that followed was surgical. My mother retrieved the vase pieces one by one, glass chiming against porcelain. "Then you are no longer welcome here," she said, voice steady as the metronome on my childhood piano. My father added the final cut. "We have a reputation to protect." They revoked my trust fund the next morning. The scholarship full ride, renewable on condition of moral conduct, vanished by noon. The dean's email was polite, devastating, effective immediately due to breach of honor code. I later learned my father sat on the board of trustees. One phone call, one signature. My future erased. I packed that night while Ryan's final text glowed on my phone. "I'm sorry. We're done." I deleted the message, the voicemail where he once said he couldn't wait to hear our baby's first cry. I kept the ultrasound. I kept the rage. The first apartment was a studio above a laundromat, walls thin enough to hear the spin cycle's heartbeat. I gave birth in a county hospital, gripping a nurse's hand instead of Ryan's. Lily arrived screaming, fists clenched like she already knew the world would try to silence her. I named her after the flower my mother used to arrange, pure, stubborn, impossible to kill. I taught piano in community centers, church basements, any room with 88 keys, and a willing parent. Students paid what they could, $10 a casserole, a promise to practice. I taped Lily's sonogram above the upright in our living room, a reminder that music had brought her into the world, and music would keep her safe. Every scale, every arpeggio, every tear-stained recital became a brick in the wall I built between us and the past. Some nights I played for her while she slept lullabies I invented on the spot, weaving Ryan's betrayal into minor chords, my parents' rejection into dissonant clusters that resolved, always resolved, into something gentle. Music heals, I told myself. Music forgives. Music endures. I said it so often I almost believed it. Almost. The years blurred, first steps on cracked linoleum. First words, mama and moon, in the same breath. First recital where she bowed so low her curls swept the stage. I watched from the back row, heart swelling until it hurt. She never asked about her father. I never offered. Some stories are too heavy for small shoulders. But children notice absences. The way I flinched at certain area codes. The way I kept one drawer locked. The way I sometimes stared at nothing and whispered. They chose pride over blood. We were buckling seatbelts in the parking lot of the diner, where I gave Saturday lessons when Lily's backpack spilled open. Crayons, sheet music, a half-eaten granola bar, and a photograph creased and soft from handling. I picked it up thinking it was one of her school pictures. It wasn't. Ryan smiled out at me. Younger hair, tousled arms slung around a version of myself I barely recognized. Laughing. Radiant ring sparkling on my left hand. The engagement portrait we'd had taken in Central Park, the one I'd burned the night he left. Except this copy was pristine, edges worn from tiny fingers. Lily watched me in the dim glow of the dome light. "I found it in the attic at Grandma's last summer," she said quietly. "When you were in the bathroom." I wasn't snooping. It just fell out of a book. My throat closed. "You've never met him." "I know." She traced the photo with one finger. "But he looks like someone who used to love us." The diner's neon sign buzzed overhead, casting red shadows across the dashboard. I tucked the picture into my purse, hands shaking. 10 years of careful walls and one snapshot cracked them wide open. Lily clicked her seatbelt. "I'm glad he's not here," she said. "We're enough." I started the car, but the engine wouldn't catch. Not yet. Because in the silence between heartbeats, I heard the first note of a song I hadn't written yet, one that started with betrayal and ended with something sharper than forgiveness. Revenge, perhaps. Or justice. Or simply the truth played in a key they'd never seen coming. The engine finally caught on the third try, a reluctant growl that matched the knot in my chest. I eased onto the road, the photograph of Ryan burning a hole in my purse, but Lily's steady breathing beside me pulled me back to the present. She had fallen asleep before we reached the stoplight, head tilted against the window, one hand still curled as if holding a microphone. I carried her inside when we got home, her 10-year-old frame heavier than it used to be, and tucked her into the narrow bed we'd painted sunshine yellow the summer she turned 6. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant wail of a siren. I left the purse on the kitchen table, the photo face down, and tried to pretend the past hadn't just climbed into the car with us. Morning came too soon. Lily bounded out of her room in mismatched socks, cereal bowl already in hand. Mom. I finished the song she announced, milk sloshing over the rim. Want to hear it? I was measuring coffee grounds, hands still shaky from the night before. After breakfast, I said, buying time. Truth was, I'd heard her humming fragments for weeks, soft haunting phrases that drifted through the thin wall between our rooms, while I graded scales and balanced checkbooks. She'd been secretive about the lyrics, scribbling in a spiral notebook she guarded like contraband. I told myself it was just a phase, the way kids write poems about rainbows and lost teeth. I was wrong. She waited until the dishes were done, then dragged the stool to our upright piano, the one with the chipped ivory and the sticky G-sharp that no tuner could fix. The bench creaked as she sat back straight, fingers poised. It's called For the Ones Who Never Clapped, she said, and launched into the melody before I could brace myself. The first notes were simple, almost childlike, but they carried a weight that made the air thicken. Her voice, clear, unpolished, heartbreaking, filled the tiny living room. She sang about hands folded in laps, about polite smiles that never reached the eyes, about a little girl standing on a stage no one had built for her. Each verse built on the last, the piano answering her like an old friend who knew all the secrets. By the chorus, tears were sliding down my cheeks, hot and unstoppable. The song wasn't about fame or glitter. It was about us. About every recital where I'd clapped alone in the back row. About every birthday where the only cake was the one I baked at midnight. About the mansion we'd left behind, and the pride that had tried to bury us. When the final chord faded, the silence felt sacred. Lily turned on the stool, eyes shining. It's for you, Mom. So you know I see everything. I couldn't speak. I pulled her into my arms, her hair smelling of strawberry shampoo and possibility. It's beautiful, baby, I whispered. But it's ours. Just ours. Her face fell. I want to send it to AGT. The deadline's tomorrow. The word no formed instantly sharp as the cracked piano key. Absolutely not. I stood wiping my hands on a dish towel that suddenly felt too small. Those shows chew kids up. The judges, the lights, the rejection, it's not for you. But I'm not afraid, she said, voice steady. And I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for us. We argued quietly because the walls were thin, and the neighbors already knew too much. I laid out every fear, the cost of travel, the cruelty of strangers, the way fame twists even the purest hearts. She countered with logic that belonged to someone twice her age. We could borrow the community center's camera record after hours, submit online. No expense. No risk. I held firm. The world had taken enough from us. I wouldn't hand it my daughter on a silver platter. That night, I thought she'd dropped it. She kissed me goodnight, crawled under her quilt with the faded rocket ships, and turned off her lamp. I stayed up grading papers, the red pen trembling slightly. Around midnight, I heard the soft creak of the piano bench. I tiptoed to the doorway and watched her silhouette in the moonlight, headphones on, filming herself with my ancient flip phone propped against a stack of music books. She played the song again, slower this time, every note deliberate. When she finished, she whispered to the lens, "This is for my mom. She thinks I can't, but watch me." I should have stopped her. Instead, I retreated to my room, heart pounding with a mix of pride and terror. By morning, the video was gone from the phone, uploaded to some corner of the internet I couldn't control. Lily ate her oatmeal without a word, eyes bright with secrets. 3 days later, the call came while I was tuning Mrs. Henderson's upright fingers black with dust and regret. The number was blocked, but I answered anyway, habit from years of hoping for gig cancellations that never came. Emma Carter. The voice was female, low, raspy around the edges, like someone who'd smoked too many cigarettes or screamed too many nights. This is NBC Talent. We received a submission for AGT Kids. Lily Carter. My stomach dropped. There's been a mistake. She's not We don't make mistakes. The woman interrupted, a smile in her tone. That song. Those lyrics. We need her in Los Angeles next week. I gripped the phone so hard the plastic creaked. She's 10. She doesn't have a guardian's consent. A pause, then a soft laugh. I think we've met before, Emma. The line went dead. I stood in Mrs. Henderson's living room, surrounded by doilies and cat hair, the dial tone buzzing like a trapped bee. The voice wasn't Ryan's mother. She'd died 5 years ago. Cancer quick and merciless. I'd read the obituary, felt nothing. But the cadence, the faint New England clip, the way she said my name, it was close enough to raise the hairs on my neck. Lily came home from school with a library book on constellations, oblivious to the storm she'd unleashed. I watched her spread the book on the kitchen table, tracing Orion with a sticky finger, and tried to imagine her under stadium lights, a nation judging every note. The phone sat between us like a loaded gun. That evening, I found her practicing in the laundry room, our makeshift studio since the piano's pedal broke. She'd dragged in a folding chair, balanced the flip phone on a detergent bottle, and was recording a second take. The song had grown, a bridge added harmonies layered with the voice memo app. She saw me in the doorway and stopped mid-phrase. I know you're mad, she said, chin lifted. But I had to. I knelt eye level. Who helped you submit it? No one. Her gaze didn't waver. I used the library computer. I'm sorry I disobeyed, but I'm not sorry I sent it. The honesty in her voice undid me. I pulled her close, felt her small heart hammering against mine. We'll talk about rules later, I murmured. Right now, tell me about the call. She hadn't heard it. The woman had called my cell, not the house line. I replayed the conversation in my head, the rasp, the familiarity, the impossible recognition. Ryan's mother was dead. So who was using her ghost to lure my daughter into the spotlight? Lily fell asleep on the couch, constellation book open on her chest. I sat beside her, phone in hand, thumb hovering over the callback button. The apartment felt smaller, the walls pressing in with questions I wasn't ready to answer. Outside, a car backfired sharp as a gunshot. I jumped, heart racing. Then I saw at the flip phone screen, glowing on the coffee table, a new notification. A text from an unknown number. Check your email. We're waiting. I opened my laptop with fingers that wouldn't stop trembling. The inbox held one new message subject line. Lily's audition. Urgent. The sender E.R. Holtz Legacy at NBC.com. Ryan's last name. His mother's initials. A dead woman's voice. I froze, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. Someone was impersonating a ghost, and they knew exactly where to find us. The cursor blinked like a dare, but I didn't open the email. Not yet. I shut the laptop, unplugged it, and carried it to the closet like it might explode. Lily stirred on the couch, murmuring something about stars, and I covered her with the afghan my grandmother knitted before everything went wrong. Sleep didn't come for me. I sat at the kitchen table until dawn, replaying the raspy voice, the impossible initials, the weight of a past I thought I'd buried. By morning, I'd made a decision. We were going to Los Angeles, but on my terms. I called the number back from a payphone at the gas station, demanded paperwork, a chaperone, a contract I could read with my own lawyer. The woman, calm professional, no trace of the rasp, agreed to everything. Tickets arrived by courier that afternoon. Economy seats, hotel voucher per diem, that wouldn't cover coffee in California. I packed one suitcase for both of us, Lily's dress folded between my sweaters like contraband. The flight was Lily's first. She pressed her nose to the window as we lifted off clouds, swallowing the town whole. I gripped the armrest, every bump a reminder that I was handing my daughter to strangers. She squeezed my hand. We're flying, Mom. Like the song. I managed a smile that felt borrowed. Los Angeles hit us with heat and noise, palm trees whipping in exhaust. The shuttle dropped us at a budget hotel near the convention center, the kind with ice machines that groaned and carpets that smelled of old ambition. Lily bounced on the bed, counting ceiling stains like constellations. I unpacked her dress. Navy cotton hem let out twice a patch on the skirt where she'd fallen off her bike last spring. I'd sewn a tiny music note over the tear. She twirled in it, fearless. Audition day dawned smoggy. The line outside the auditorium snaked around the block kids in sequins and custom sneakers, parents clutching headshots and energy drinks. Lily clutched my hand. We were numbers 312 and 313, scribbled on wristbands that itched. Inside, the air was thick with hairspray and nerves. A girl in a tutu practiced vocal runs that cracked on the high notes. A boy juggled flaming batons while his mother filmed on 2 phones. We waited 4 hours. Lily colored in a notebook, sketching pianos with wings. I rehearsed worst-case scenarios, boozed tears a judge's polite no. When they called her name, my legs nearly gave out. Backstage was chaos, cameras, clipboards, a producer with a headset barking orders. Lily's eyes went wide, but she didn't cling. A makeup artist dabbed powder on her nose, cooed over her curls. Then we were herded to the wings, the stage a black void beyond the curtain. I kissed her forehead, tasted salt. "Remember why you wrote it?" I whispered. She nodded, stepped into the light. The arena was cavernous seats climbing into darkness. 4 judges at a long table, faces I recognized from television but couldn't name through the panic. Lily walked to the center, marked dress, swaying patched skirt, catching the spotlight. A microphone stand towered over her. She adjusted it herself. Small hands steady. "Name and age," the host asked. "Lily Carter, 10, she said, voice clear as a bell. "What will you be performing?" "An original song on piano, for the ones who never clapped." A ripple of laughter from the rich kids in the front row. Glittery dresses, designer sneakers. One whispered loud enough for the mic to catch, "Look at the thrift store princess." Another giggled, "Hope the piano's not patched too." Lily didn't flinch. She sat at the grand piano, sleek, black, intimidating, and lifted the fallboard. The laughter died. Her fingers found middle C and the first chord rang out like a promise. She played the intro softer than I'd ever heard, each note a confession. Then her voice entered small but unflinching, weaving the story of silence, dreams, and stubborn hope. The arena hushed, phones lowered. Even the judges leaned forward. By the second verse, tears streaked the cheeks of a woman in the 3rd row. Lily's voice cracked on the bridge, not from fear, but from the weight of the words. She pushed through the piano, answering with runs that climbed like vines through concrete. When the final chord resolved, the silence lasted 3 heartbeats. Then the place erupted. Standing ovation whistles, judges on their feet. Simon Cowell, sharp eyes, sharper tongue, slammed the golden buzzer before the applause died. Gold confetti exploded from the rafters, catching the lights like a storm of tiny suns. Lily stood mouth open, confetti in her hair. The jumbotron behind her flashed to life. Not the usual graphics. Words in simple white text for Emma, 2011. My name. My year of ruin. The crowd roared louder, thinking it was part of the act. I stood frozen in the wings, the confetti drifting around me like fallout. Lily looked up at the screen, then at me, eyes shining with questions she couldn't ask on stage. Simon spoke into his mic voice, cutting through the chaos. "Young lady, that was extraordinary. Who's Emma?" Lily smiled small and fierce. "My mom. She taught me everything." The cameras swung to me. I forced my legs forward, met her at center stage. She hugged me hard, confetti sticking to my tears. The host tried to move things along, but the moment belonged to us. Backstage, the high was electric. Producers swarmed, contracts waved like flags. Lily floated, cheeks flushed, signing autographs on napkins. I held her hand, grounding us both. A stage tech approached, headset askew, face pale. "Ma'am," he whispered, leaning close so only I could hear. That file on the screen, it wasn't in our system. Someone uploaded it remotely 30 seconds before the buzzer. "Who sent that file?" I looked past him to the monitors, cycling footage of Lily's performance, my name still glowing in the corner like a brand. The confetti had settled, but the storm was just beginning. The text question hung in the air like a smoke alarm nobody wanted to acknowledge. I opened my mouth closed. It felt Lily's small hand slip into mine, sticky with confetti residue. A producer appeared, all teeth and clipboard, ushering us toward a press corral where microphones bloomed like metal flowers. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions about inspiration, about the mysterious dedication. I answered in monosyllables, shielding Lily with my body. The words "For Emma, 2011" still glowed on every monitor, looping in slow motion behind the anchors' heads. By the time we reached the hotel, the clip had already escaped the arena and was sprinting across the internet. We ordered room service grilled cheese because Lily declared it celebration food. She ate half, then fell asleep, mid-bite crust balanced on her lip. I tucked her in, pulled the blackout curtains, and opened my phone with the dread of someone checking a biopsy result. The video sat at 2 million views and climbing like a fever. The thumbnail was Lily at the piano, Gold Storm frozen mid-burst. My name blazing across the bottom third. I scrolled the comments with a thumb that wouldn't stop trembling. The very first one, posted 37 seconds after upload, stopped my heart. I recorded this in 2011. No username, just a string of numbers. No profile picture. The timestamp matched the exact minute Simon's hand hit the buzzer. I refreshed. The comment had already been liked 4,000 times. Replies poured in. Wait, she was a fetus. Time traveler confirmed. This is AI, right? I clicked the poster's history blank. Account created today. My pulse hammered in my ears louder than the arena had. By morning, we were at 20 million. Morning shows looped the performance on every screen in the hotel lobby. Strangers stopped us in the hallway to ask for selfies. Lily signed a paper napkin for a bellhop who cried when she wrote, "Keep clapping." I smiled until my face ached, but every notification felt like another footstep behind us. Then my brother posted. I hadn't spoken to David in 8 years, not since he sided with our parents at Lily's christening, and called me selfish for refusing their ultimatum. His verified account blue-check corporate headshot lit up with a carousel of photos. Lily at 6 months in a smocked dress I'd never seen, Lily at 3 on a pony. I didn't own. Lily at 7 blowing out candles on a cake iced with the family crest. The caption read, "So proud of my niece Lily Carter hitting the golden buzzer runs in the family. Grandma started her on piano at age 2 and we've been her biggest cheerleaders ever since. Blood is thicker than confetti." Judge Carter Pride named AGT. The post racked up 200,000 likes in an hour. Comments flooded with heart emojis and, "What a supportive family." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. The pony picture was dated the same week I'd been evicted for missing rent. The smock dress had come from a church donation box. David had photoshopped himself into memories that never happened. My phone rang with a number I hadn't saved but recognized by area code. I let it go to voicemail, then played it on speaker while Lily colored at the desk. Emma. My mother's voice crisp as the starched collars she favored. "Turn on channel 7. Your brother is being interviewed about Lily's upbringing. Call us before you do anything rash. This reflects on all of us." I muted the television just as David's face filled the screen, suit press smile practiced. The host leaned in. "David, your parents must be thrilled. Tell us about the family's role in Lily's talent." David's eyes glistened on cue. "Music is our legacy. Mom gave Lily private lessons every summer. Dad built her a practice studio in the guest house. We've sacrificed so much to nurture her gift." The anchor nodded solemnly. I felt the grilled cheese rise in my throat. Lily looked up from her drawing. "Why is Uncle David lying?" "Because lies travel faster than truth," I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. The phone rang again, same number. This time I answered. My father didn't bother with hello. "You're exploiting that child for attention, parading her in rags, dragging our name through the tabloids. We offered help years ago and you spat in our faces. Now you want the world to think we abandoned you." I walked to the bathroom, closed the door so Lily wouldn't hear. "You offered to buy my silence, not raise my daughter." "Don't twist history," he snapped. "We're prepared to make a statement. Unless you issue a correction crediting the family's support, we will." The line clicked dead. I stared at my reflection. Eyes, red hair escaping its braid. The same woman who'd once stood at an altar alone. The mirror blurred. I splashed water on my face, counted to 10, went back to the room. Lily had pulled the curtains open. Los Angeles glittered below us, a carpet of lights that looked close enough to touch. She stood on the bed, arms wide like she could embrace the whole city. "Mom, look how many people clapped." She pointed at my phone now at 22 million views, even the ones who didn't want to. I sat beside her, the mattress dipping under our combined weight. Your grandparents are angry. She considered this head tilted. They'll clap one day. The simplicity of it cracked something open in my chest. Not hope, not yet. Something fiercer. A promise. I pulled her close, felt her heartbeat against mine, steady as the melody she'd written. Outside, billboards flickered with her face gold confetti frozen mid-fall. Inside, the storm was just gathering strength. Lily's words settled between us like a vow spoken to the city lights, and for a moment the room felt vast enough to hold every possibility. I kissed the top of her head, tasted confetti dust and hotel shampoo, and promised myself we would navigate whatever came next together. The flight home was quiet. She slept against my shoulder while I watched clouds bruise into sunset, rehearsing answers to questions I couldn't yet name. Our little town greeted us with the same cracked sidewalks and flickering street lamps, but everything felt tilted as though fame had nudged the planet off its axis. Reporters camped outside the apartment for 3 days until the next viral cat video displaced us. I unplugged the landline, taught lessons through the back door, and waited for the storm to pass. It didn't pass. It simply changed direction. A week later, the invitation arrived, thick cream envelope sealed with wax the color of old pearls. My mother's handwriting, elegant and unforgiving. Dinner. 8 o'clock. Do not bring the press. I almost threw it away, but Lily found it first, tracing the embossed crest with a finger still sparkled from LA glitter. They want to see me, she said, not a question. I saw the hope in her eyes, small, stubborn, impossible to crush, and agreed. One more meal. One more chance to prove we didn't need them. The mansion looked smaller under a November sky, leafless trees clawing at the clouds. The same maid answered, older now, eyes flicking to Lily, with something between curiosity and pity. My parents waited in the dining room, candlelight gilding their tension. My father stood when we entered, a courtesy I didn't remember from childhood. My mother's smile was a porcelain mask. The table was set for 4 again, but the chairs had been reupholstered in muted gold, as though a decade could be erased with fabric. We moved through the ritual coats, hung hands, washed small talk about the weather, and the price of gasoline. Lily sat to my left, knees swinging above the floor, napkin folded into a perfect swan. The first course arrived, miso soup steam curling like ghosts. My father cleared his throat. We've been following the developments. Lily beamed. Did you see the golden confetti? It got in my shoes for days. My mother's spoon paused midair. We saw. The television in the corner, an enormous flat screen that hadn't existed 10 years ago, hummed to life on its own. Or so it seemed. My father must have pressed a remote hidden in his lap. The volume was low, but the image was unmistakable. Lily on the AGT stage, gold storm frozen mid-burst. The replay slowed to savor every note. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. My mother's spoon clattered against porcelain broth, sloshing over the rim. My father's chopsticks slipped from his fingers and struck the table with a sound like a gavel. On screen, Lily's voice rose into the bridge, the part where the melody shifted from minor to something luminous. My father's face drained of color. He leaned forward, elbows on the linen, as though the table itself might steady him. The tune wasn't just familiar. It was intimate. A cradle song he'd hummed over my crib on nights when colic kept the household awake. I'd been too young to remember the words, but the melody had lived in my bones, passed to Lily through lullabies I invented in our cramped apartment. She had woven it into her song without knowing its origin, or perhaps knowing on some cellular level where memory and blood converge. The clip ended with Simon's buzzer and the dedication flashing for Emma, 2011. The screen cut to a local news anchor, and in a heartwarming twist, Lily's grandparents, prominent community philanthropists, have been invited to share their pride on tomorrow's morning show. A phone number scrolled beneath smiling headshots of my parents taken at last year's charity gala. My mother recovered first, dabbing her lips with a napkin that trembled only slightly. We accepted, of course. Family unity is important. Lily looked from the television to her grandparents, eyes wide but not fooled. "You're going to talk about me." My father found his voice. "We're going to talk about support. Legacy. The sacrifices made so you could shine." The words hung heavy, each one a stone dropped into still water. I felt the ripples reach my throat. Lily tilted her head, considering. "Did you sacrifice when Mom taught me on a piano with missing keys? Or when we ate oatmeal for dinner 3 nights in a row?" My mother's smile froze. Children shouldn't concern themselves with adult matters. The maid entered with the main course beef tenderloin glazed in something that smelled of money and regret, but no one moved to eat. The television looped the performance again, volume muted now, Lily's tiny figure bathed in gold. My father stared at the screen as though it might speak back. When the lullaby bridge returned, his eyes glistened, whether from recognition or calculation I couldn't tell. He pushed his plate away. "We should discuss logistics," he said to the room at large. "The interview. Talking points. We'll need wardrobe coordination." I set my fork down with deliberate care. "There's nothing to discuss. Lily's story is hers to tell." My mother's voice sharpened. "Don't be difficult, Emma. This is an opportunity for all of us." Lily reached for her water glass, knuckles white. "I don't want new clothes. I want the ones with the patch Mom sewed." The silence that followed was arctic. Outside wind rattled the leaded windows, sneaking cold fingers through the seams. My father broke it, voice softer than I'd heard since childhood. "That melody," he said almost to himself. "I sang it to you every night for a year. You had nightmares about thunderstorms." I felt the table tilt again, the past rushing up like floodwater. He had never spoken of those nights, not once in the decade since he'd closed the door on us. My mother's gaze flicked to him, startled as though he'd confessed a crime. The maid cleared the untouched plate's silverware, clinking like ice in a glass. Dessert was offered, chocolate mousse in crystal cups, but Lily asked to be excused. I started to rise, but my father lifted a hand. "Let her go. We need to speak privately." Lily hesitated, then kissed my cheek and slipped away, her footsteps light on the marble. The moment she was gone, my mother leaned forward. "The station wants us on at 7. We'll say the estrangement was a misunderstanding, that we've always supported her talent from afar. It's clean. It's believable." I laughed, a sound sharp enough to cut. Believable to whom the internet already knows the truth. My father's eyes returned to the muted television, where Lily's face filled the screen in slow motion. "People believe what they're told often enough," he said. "We can still shape the narrative." The cold deepened, seeping into my bones. I stood chair-scraping like a warning. "There's only one narrative, and it isn't yours." I found Lily in the foyer, sitting on the bottom step, knees drawn to her chest. She looked up when I approached. "They're scared," she whispered. I could tell. I offered my hand. She took it. Together we walked to the door, the maid holding our coats without being asked. Behind us, the dining room television flickered on once more, the lullaby bridge playing silently, gold confetti suspended forever mid-fall. My father's voice followed us low and cracked, almost lost beneath the wind. "Maybe it's time we rewrite our story." The heavy front door clicked shut behind us, sealing my father's muttered words inside like a confession that hadn't decided whether to repent. Lily and I walked to the car in silence, our breath clouding in the November chill, the gravel crunching under our shoes like brittle bones. I expected the drive home to feel like escape, but the mansion's shadow followed us all the way to the county line, clinging to the headlights. Lily fell asleep before we reached the highway, her head against the window. The porch light's glow still reflected in her eyelashes. I carried her inside, tucked her under the quilt, and stood in the dark living room longer than necessary, listening to the refrigerator hum and wondering if my father's whisper had been regret or rehearsal. The next morning, the doorbell rang at 7:30 an hour, when decent people were still in robes. I opened it to find my mother on the stoop, coat buttoned to the throat, a department store box under one arm, and a professional smile under the other. Behind her stood a man with a camera slung like a weapon, and a woman holding a ring light that turned the hallway fluorescent. My mother didn't wait for an invitation. "We're here for Lily's fitting." she announced, stepping past me as though the apartment were a stage, and she'd already memorized her blocking. Lily appeared in dinosaur pajamas, hair a wild halo. Grandma. The word came out half question, half hope. My mother knelt, box extended. Something appropriate for the morning show. We can't have you looking like you dressed in the dark. The cameraman was already filming. I moved to block the lens, but my mother lifted a hand. Emma, please. This is for her future. The dress inside the box was pale blue, silk smocked bodice, price tag, discreetly removed, but still screaming thousands. Lily's eyes widened. She reached out, then pulled back. Mom sewed me a new one, she said, pointing to the navy cotton hanging on the back of the chair. Tiny music notes embroidered along the hem. My mother's smile didn't waver. Of course. But television requires a certain polish. I started to protest, but Lily was already slipping into the silk, the fabric pooling around her ankles like forgiveness she hadn't asked for. The crew set up in our living room, ring light, harsh against the peeling wallpaper cables snaking across the rug. My mother orchestrated every moment, Lily at the piano. Lily hugging her grandmother. Lily laughing at a joke I didn't hear. My father arrived mid-shoot, tie-perfect, carrying a bakery box of croissants he presented as though he'd baked them himself. He pulled me into a stiff embrace for the camera, murmuring, "Cooperate, Emma." For her sake. They filmed for 2 hours. Lily played a shortened version of her song. My parents applauded with the enthusiasm of people who'd never missed a recital. The director asked for candid footage, my mother brushing Lily's curls, my father pretending to tune the piano. I stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, tasting metal. When they asked me to join a group hug, I refused. The cameraman zoomed anyway, catching my rigid shoulders in the background. By noon, they were gone, leaving croissant crumbs and the faint scent of my mother's perfume. Lily twirled in the blue dress, then carefully hung it in the closet beside my hand-sewn one. "It's pretty," she admitted, "but it scratches." I kissed her forehead and promised we'd alter the neckline. The segment aired the next morning. I watched it on the tiny television in the laundromat while folding Lily's socks. My parents filled the screen, polished and teary. "We've always been her biggest supporters," my mother said, voice trembling with practiced emotion. Distance was painful, but love never wavered. My father added, "Music is in our blood." We taught her everything she knows. They never mentioned the decade of silence, the locked doors, the trust fund that vanished the day I refused to sign away my daughter. The internet swallowed it whole. Within hours, tabloid headlines bloomed. Single mom pushes child for fame. Grandparents reveal shocking sacrifice. A grainy still from the shoot me in the background, arms folded, face tight, became the thumbnail. Comments poured in like acid. Stage mom alert. Poor kid doesn't stand a chance. Using her daughter to punish the family classic. My inbox filled with interview requests labeled, "Urgent, tell your side." I deleted them all. Lily came home from school with a crumpled note from her teacher. "Please address the media attention, it's disrupting class." The principal called to suggest homeschooling temporarily. At the grocery store, a woman I'd known since kindergarten whispered to her friend loud enough for me to hear. Always knew she was jealous of her parents' success. I shielded Lily as best I could, unplugged the television-disabled comments on her fan page, walked her to school through the back gate. But fame is a tide. It finds the cracks. She stopped practicing in the laundry room, started drawing the curtains when she played. One night, I found her crying over her keyboard, the blue silk dress balled in the corner like shed skin. "They said I'm a puppet," she whispered. "That you pull the strings." I held her until the sobs subsided, then carried the dress to the trash. The silk caught on the lid, shimmering accusingly in the porch light. The final betrayal came on a Tuesday that smelled of snow. I was grading scales when my phone buzzed with a news alert. A 30-second clip uploaded anonymously, me in the kitchen telling Lily, "Just smile for the camera, baby. It'll be over soon." The audio was clean, my voice unmistakable, but the context was gone, cut from a longer conversation where I'd been coaching her through nerves. The caption, "Momager," caught on hot mic. The video racked up 3 million views before dinner. My mother texted a single thumbs up emoji. I sat at the table staring at the screen until the numbers blurred. Lily padded in barefoot, holding her stuffed giraffe. "Are we bad people now?" she asked. I pulled her onto my lap. "We're just people," I said. "And people make mistakes, but we don't lie to fix them." She nodded, then rested her head against my shoulder. The apartment was quiet except for the tick of the wall clock my students had given me for Christmas. I was about to suggest cocoa when my laptop chimed an email. No subject sender, a string of numbers and letters. I opened it with the wariness of someone defusing a bomb. One line of text, black on white. "You don't know what they did in 2011. No signature, no attachment. Just those 8 words glowing like a match struck in the dark. The 8 words on the screen pulsed like a second heartbeat. I stared until the letters blurred, then clicked the only attachment, a single audio file labeled 2011, 03, 17, heartbeat. Wave. My finger hovered trembling. Lily's breathing drifted from her bedroom, soft and even, the only steady thing in the apartment. I slipped on headphones, pressed play, and the world narrowed to a single impossible sound. Whump, whump. Whump, whump. A baby's heart, 140 beats per minute, recorded the night I pressed a cheap cassette recorder to my belly because I couldn't afford a Doppler. I'd sung to it every evening lullabies I invented while folding laundry, promising a future neither of us had yet. The tape ended with my own voice cracked and 22. "This one's for you, little one. We're going to be okay." I ripped the headphones off. My knees buckled. I hadn't seen that cassette since the week Lily was born. My parents had taken the hospital bag to help, returned it missing the recorder. I'd assumed it was lost in the shuffle of discharge papers and sleepless nights. They'd kept it locked away like evidence. The email's sender line was still gibberish, but the message had grown while I listened. A second line appeared beneath the first, typed in the same plain font. "They took your scholarship in your name." I scrolled. A PDF followed bank transfer March 23, 2011, from the Juilliard Emergency Fund to an account ending in 4422. My signature, shaky, forged, sat at the bottom, dated 2 days after I'd been told the money ran out. The memo line read, "Carter Family Charitable Trust." I printed everything, hands shaking so badly the pages jammed twice. Then I did what any mother does when the ground disappears. I checked on my child. Lily lay on her side, giraffe tucked under her chin, moonlight striping the quilt. I kissed her forehead, tasted salt, and whispered a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. Morning arrived, gray and merciless. My phone buzzed with cancellations before I'd poured coffee. A children's clothing brand, regretfully withdrawing our offer. A piano app company, pausing collaboration, pending review. The local news ran a ticker, AGT postpones. Lily Carter Appearance Network. CIT's family concerns. A producer left voicemail in the tone people use for funerals. "We adore Lily, but the optics. You understand." I understood. The world had chosen sides, and we weren't on the winning one. Lily padded in, wearing the same dinosaur pajamas, eyes puffy from yesterday's tears. She climbed onto the stool, opened the cereal box, and found it empty. Her shoulders sagged. "Mom?" she said, voice small. "Are we poor again?" The question sliced deeper than any headline. I knelt, cupped her face. "We're rich in the ways that matter. But yes, money's tight right now." She nodded, once solemn. "I can stop piano camp. And the new shoes." I pulled her into my lap, felt her ribs under the thin cotton. "You're not stopping anything. We'll figure it out." She buried her face in my neck. "I just wanted them to clap." "They will," I lied, because some lies are love in disguise. The day unraveled in slow motion. I emailed every contact I had, begging for rescheduled lessons, offering discounts. A parent replied with a single emoji, a broken heart. The grocery store clerk slid my card 3 times before whispering, "Declined." I paid with the emergency 20 tucked in my sock drawer, the one meant for field trip permission slips. By dusk, we were eating peanut butter sandwiches on the floor, because the table was buried in printed bank statements. Lily traced circles in the crumbs. Grandma said fame was a fairy tale with teeth. She's not wrong, I admitted. Lily looked up, eyes suddenly sharp. Then why does the fairy tale keep biting us? I had no answer. The cassette sat on the counter like a tiny coffin. I'd played it on loop all afternoon, each heartbeat a reminder of what had been stolen twice. First the money, now the dream. At 11:07 p.m., the laptop chimed again. Same sender. A new attachment. A scanned key. Not a metaphor, an actual brass key photographed against graph paper labeled, Safe Study Top Drawer. Beneath it, a single line, they still have the tape. Get it before they destroy it. I stared until the screen dimmed. The mansion was 40 minutes away. The roads were clear, the night quiet. I looked at Lily asleep on the couch with her giraffe sandwich crusts arranged like a crown beside her. I grabbed my coat. The drive felt like sleepwalking. Streetlights blurred into watercolor streaks. I parked 2 blocks away, cut the engine, and walked the rest under bare maples that scratched the sky. The mansion's side gate was unlocked. My father never changed the code after I left. I knew the house's arteries by heart. Servants' stairs. The loose floorboard outside the study. The faint scent of cedar that meant I was close. The study door was ajar. Moonlight spilled across the desk, illuminating the safe exactly where the photo promised. My birthday backward clicked the tumblers open. Inside the cassette labeled in my mother's perfect cursive, Emma keeps safe. Beside it, a second tape marked, Lily never play. My hands shook so violently the plastic cases rattled. I took both. Footsteps on the runner, soft, deliberate. I slid into the knee-hole heart, hammering against my ribs. My mother's silhouette paused in the doorway, phone to her ear. Yes, the network agreed to the exclusive. We'll deliver the reformed stage mom angle by Friday. A pause. Burn the originals after the interview. No loose ends. The light switched off. Her footsteps receded. I waited 10 breaths, then 10 more. The cassettes weighed nothing and everything. I slipped them into my pocket, closed the safe, and retraced my path through the sleeping house. The night air hit my face like absolution. Back home, I locked the door, deadbolted it, and slid to the floor with the tapes in my lap. Lily's breathing drifted from the couch, steady as the heartbeat I now held in duplicate. I pressed the original to my lips, tasting dust and time. The laptop glowed awake on its own. A new email, same sender, one line. Play the second tape. Then decide who deserves the stage. I stared at the cassette marked, Never play, its label curling at the edges. My thumb found the play button, but I didn't press it. Not yet. Some truths you have to earn. Outside, the first snow began to fall soft and deliberate, covering the world in a silence thick enough to swallow screams. Inside, 2 tapes and a sleeping child waited for morning and whatever came after forgiveness. The email stared back at me, those 8 words pulsing like a wound reopened. I closed the laptop with a snap that echoed through the apartment, my hands shaking as if the screen had burned them. Lily slept on oblivious, her giraffe tucked under her chin. I paced the narrow hallway until the floorboards groaned in protest, replaying every headline, every whispered judgment, every lost glance in the grocery aisle. The world had turned on us overnight, and I had no shield left to raise. Morning brought no mercy. My phone buzzed with voicemails from sponsors, polite, then firm, then gone. The local music store that had offered Lily an endorsement for beginner keyboards cited brand alignment issues. A children's clothing line pulled their Golden Girl campaign, the email CCing their legal team. Worst was the call from AGT producer's voice laced with regret. We're pausing Lily's progression until the narrative clarifies. Family drama distracts from the talent. They promised to revisit after the holidays. The line went dead before I could argue. I set the phone face down and stared at the stack of bills on the counter. Rent overdue, electric flickering a warning. Lessons had dried up. Parents cited scheduling conflicts that translated to fear of association. I canceled the few that remained, refunded deposits with money scraped from the emergency jar. The jar was nearly empty now, coins clinking like accusations. Lily woke to the smell of toast burned because I'd forgotten the burner. She patted in, rubbing her eyes. No school today, teacher in service, I lied, sliding a plate across the table. She picked at the crust, then looked up with that direct gaze that always undid me. Mom, are we poor again? The question landed soft but heavy as stones skipped across still water. I knelt beside her chair, brushing crumbs from her lap. We're adjusting, but we have each other. And your song, that's worth more than any deal. She nodded, but her lower lip trembled. The kids at school said I'm famous for being mean, that you made me cry on TV. I pulled her close, felt her small body shake with sobs she'd held back too long. We stayed like that until the toast went cold, the apartment silent except for our breathing. I carried her to the couch, wrapped us in the Afghan, and let her fall asleep against my chest. Her weight anchored me, a reminder that rock bottom still had a floor. The laptop sat on the coffee table lid, closed but not forgotten. I opened it with the caution of someone handling fragile glass. The email waited unread beyond the preview. I clicked. No text, just an attachment. A audio file labeled 2011. Heartbeat wave, and a single line below, play me. My finger hovered. I glanced at Lily, peaceful now, lashes dark against her cheeks, then pressed play. Static crackled, then a voice, mine younger, breathless, recorded on a cheap handheld device. Week 20, I whispered on the tape. She's kicking like she's already playing scales. Listen. A whoosh, rhythmic and insistent, the swoosh swoosh of a fetal heartbeat, strong and steady. I'd made the recording in a clinic waiting room alone, Ryan's absence a fresh bruise. I'd played it for hours in that first apartment, convincing myself the sound was enough company. But the tape continued. A door creaked open, familiar, the heavy oak of my parents' study. My father's voice, muffled but unmistakable. Get rid of it. We can't have evidence. A drawer slammed. The safe beeped 4 digits, our old house alarm code. Then silence, the recording cut. My breath caught. They'd taken it. The cassette I'd lost the week I moved out, the one I'd searched for in every box. They'd locked it away like a secret too dangerous to bury. I replayed it twice, volume low, tears tracking hot paths down my neck. Lily stirred but didn't wake. The file ended with a soft click, as though someone had pressed stop 14 years ago and waited for this exact moment to hit play again. Another attachment loaded, a scanned note, handwriting neat and damning. They took your scholarship in your name. The paper showed a bank transfer dated the day after I refused their ultimatum. My signature forged, but close enough to fool a board authorizing the funds to a Carter Family Foundation. The amount matched my full ride award, down to the penny. Recipient an account I'd never seen. I sat back, the couch springs creaking like old bones. The room's spun walls closing in, the Afghans suddenly too warm. Lily murmured in her sleep, one hand reaching for me. I took it, felt her pulse steady against my wrist. Outside snow began to fall. Fat flakes drifting past the window like erased mistakes. I closed the laptop, but the heartbeat echoed in my ears, a drum calling me to war. Rock bottom wasn't the end. It was the foundation. And someone, friend or foe, had just handed me the blueprints. The snow kept falling soft as lies until the windows were frosted lace and the world outside looked clean. I sat on the kitchen linoleum with the 2 cassettes between my knees, the one labeled, "Never play heavier than its plastic shell had any right to be." Lily's breathing drifted from the couch, steady, trusting the only sound I could still believe in. I slid the tapes into a zippered pouch, tucked them behind the rice canister, and waited for daylight to decide what kind of mother I would become. Morning brought gray light and a knock that wasn't the mailman. I opened the door to find a man in a courier jacket, breath fogging, holding a thin manila envelope. No return address, just my name in block letters. Inside, a business card, D. Holtz, CPA, RET, and a note in spidery ink, coffee. Noon, the diner on Route 9. Come alone. I recognized the handwriting from tax returns I'd never signed. David Holtz had been my parents' accountant for 30 years, the man who'd once slipped me a 20 for ice cream when my father forgot my birthday. I hadn't seen him since the day the scholarship vanished. The diner smelled of burnt coffee and bacon grease. Holtz sat in the last booth, hair whiter than I remembered, glasses perched on a nose that had grown sharper with age. He pushed a mug toward me without asking. Black 2 sugars. Still, I nodded, slid in opposite him. He didn't waste time. I kept copies, he said, voice low. Everything. Your parents paid me to forget, but some numbers don't erase. He opened a leather folio, pages yellowed and annotated in red. Bank statements, wire confirmations, a charter for the Rebecca Carter Foundation dated the exact day Lily drew her first breath. My forged signature stared up at me, the loop on the Y too perfect, the pressure too even. They moved the scholarship money, $50,000, into the foundation the same week you were expelled. Said it was for family legacy. I signed off because your father threatened my license. I traced the forged Y with a fingertip that wouldn't stop trembling. Rebecca Carter, I whispered. The name tasted like rust. Holtz's eyes softened behind the lenses. They told the board you'd withdrawn voluntarily. Said you were starting a family, needed the funds redirected. I knew it was a lie, but I had a mortgage, a sick wife. I looked away. He slid a photograph across the table, my parents at a ribbon cutting, smiling beside a bronze plaque, Rebecca Carter Music Scholarship. The girl accepting the first award was 12, blonde, poised. Not Lily. Not me. They created a replacement, he said. A daughter who fit the story they wanted to sell. The foundation's been laundering their image ever since. I swallowed bile. Why tell me now? He tapped the folio. Because the girl on that stage is the real legacy. And because I'm old and old men hate dying with unpaid debts. He pushed a flash drive across the table. Everything's here. Offshore accounts, board minutes, emails where your mother brags about correcting the narrative. Use it wisely. I closed my fist around the drive. Thank you. He stood, left a 20 under his plate. Don't thank me. Just don't let them write the ending. The drive home blurred. I stopped at the library, used the public computer to print every document cross-referencing dates until my eyes burned. The foundation had been incorporated at 2:17 p.m., the exact minute Lily was born according to her birth certificate. The first deposit hit at 2:43. My parents had planned this while I was still in stirrups, bleeding, holding a daughter they'd already decided to erase. I built a fortress of paper in the apartment, timelines taped to the wall, red string connecting forged signatures to gala invitations. I photographed everything with my phone, uploaded encrypted backups to a cloud account, under a name no one would guess. I worked at night while Lily slept, the glow of the screen painting my face guilty blue. She never asked what I was doing. She simply left mugs of chamomile outside my door and drawings of pianos with wings on the table. 3 weeks of silence from the mansion. No more interviews, no more silk dresses. The tabloids moved on to a pop star's meltdown. AGT sent a polite email. We look forward to rescheduling when the timing feels right. Translation: when the scandal dies. I taught fewer lessons, stretched ground beef with lentils, told Lily the new shoes would come after the next recital. She nodded, practiced anyway, her small fingers finding new harmonies in the dark. The proof grew into a tower I could hide behind. I had bank records, charter documents, a sworn affidavit Holtz mailed from a P.O. box in Vermont. I drafted letters to the state attorney general, to Juilliard's ethics board, to every journalist who'd called me a stage mom. I never sent them. Not yet. Some wars you win by waiting. On a Thursday that smelled of coming spring, the doorbell rang again. I expected another courier, another envelope. Instead, a woman stood on the matte trench coat, cinched dark hair pulled into a knot that looked slept in. She was 30, maybe 35, cheekbones sharp enough to cut glass. A press badge dangled from her neck. Rebecca Carter, investigative reporter, Channel 5. My stomach dropped. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Emma Carter. We need to talk. I'm your sister. The woman's words hit me like a slap I hadn't seen coming. I gripped the doorframe, knuckles white, the hallway tilting under my feet. Rebecca Carter stood on my welcome mat press badge, glinting eyes the same storm gray as Ryan's had been. She didn't wait for an invitation. 5 minutes, she said, stepping inside as though the apartment were public property. Then you can slam the door if you want. Lily appeared behind me barefoot, holding her giraffe. Mom, go finish your homework, I said, voice steadier than I felt. She hesitated, then patted away, casting one curious glance over her shoulder. I closed the door, leaned against it. Start talking. Rebecca set a recorder on the coffee table, red light blinking. I'm not here to ambush you. I'm here because the foundation that bears my name is a lie. She pulled a folder from her bag, spread documents like tarot cards. I've been investigating the Carter Trust for months. The money trail leads to your parents. And to you. I didn't touch the papers. You're the replacement. Her laugh was bitter. That's what they told the board. Perfect daughter, perfect story. Except I'm not their daughter. I was adopted quietly, expensively 6 months after you left. They needed a child who wouldn't embarrass them. She tapped a birth certificate. This is mine. Look at the date. I did. The ink was fresh, the seal crisp. Rebecca Carter, born the same day as Lily. My knees buckled. I sat hard on the couch. They filed this the day you delivered, she said. Your name was on the original. They had it altered. Erased you, inserted me. The hospital clerk was paid to look away. I stared at the forged document, my own name scratched out in correction fluid, Rebecca's typed over it like a correction on a term paper. The room spun. Why tell me? Because the semifinal is tomorrow, she said. And I'm tired of being their prop. The semifinal. I'd pushed it to the back of my mind, buried under bank statements and midnight calculations. AGT had rescheduled Lily after the scandal died, a mercy slot at 8 p.m. Pacific. We were flying out at dawn. I'd packed her navy dress, the patched one folded between tissue paper like armor. Rebecca stood. I'll be in the audience. When Lily sings, play the cassette. Let the world hear what they tried to silence. She left the recorder, the folder, the weight of a decade. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with the 2011 tape and a portable player I'd bought at a pawn shop. I pressed play, volume low. Wump wump. Wump wump. Lily's fetal heartbeat steady as a metronome. I overlaid it with the rehearsal recording of her new song, Forgive Anyway, a ballad she'd written in the dark weeks after the tabloids turned. The rhythms matched 140 beats per minute, the same cadence that had lulled her before she had lungs to cry with. I burned both tracks to a single file, labeled it Truth. Wave, and slipped the drive into my pocket. Los Angeles greeted us with heat and haze. The auditorium was larger than the audition hall seats, climbing into rafters like a coliseum. Lily walked the stage in rehearsal navy dress, swaying patched skirt catching the lights. She looked small, but her voice filled the space when she tested the mic. I stood in the wings drive in my fist, Rebecca's folder in my bag. The show began. Acts blurred, jugglers, dancers, a boy who played violin with his feet. Lily was last. She took the stage at 10:47 p.m., piano gleaming under spotlights. The host asked her name, her song. She answered clear, unafraid. Then she sat, lifted the fallboard, and began. The intro was soft, almost a whisper. Then her voice entered, weaving forgiveness through minor chords that resolved into something radiant. The arena hushed. I watched Simon Cowell lean forward, eyes narrowing. Halfway through the first verse, the stage lights began to pulse, subtle. At first, then unmistakable. Red, white, matching the heartbeat on the cassette. The tech crew scrambled, but the rhythm held, projected on the jumbotron in waves like a fetal monitor. Simon's hand froze above the buzzer. He stared at the screen, then at Lily, then at me in the wings. Recognition flickered across his face, the same pattern he'd heard in the audition now laid bare. The audience felt it too. Phones lowered, breaths held. Lily's voice climbed the heartbeat lights, pulsing faster, 140 beats per minute, the exact tempo of a child not yet born. She finished on a suspended chord that hung in the air like grace. Silence. Then thunderous applause. The judges stood. Simon spoke first, voice thick. That wasn't just a song. That was a lifeline. Backstage producers swarmed. Lily floated, cheeks flushed, asking for chocolate milk. I slipped away to the production booth, handed the drive to a sound engineer I'd bribed with coffee and desperation. Play this during the recap, I whispered. No questions. The recap began. Clips of the night flashed jugglers, dancers, Lily's final note. Then the screen went black. A single waveform appeared pulsing. The heartbeat filled the arena, 140 beats per minute, overlaid with Lily's voice from the cassette. This one's for you, little one. My 22-year-old whisper cracked and fierce. The audience gasped. Simon's eyes found mine across the chaos. The feed cut to commercial. My phone buzzed Rebecca. Turn on channel 5. Now. I found a monitor in the green room. Rebecca stood on the live broadcast trench coat, replaced by a blazer hair loose. Behind her, the forged birth certificate filled the screen, my name erased, hers inserted. Emma Carter, she said to the camera, voice steady. The world deserves your truth. The monitor reflected my face, pale, determined, the drive still warm in my hand. Lily tugged my sleeve. Mom, what's happening? I knelt, cupped her cheeks. We're rewriting the story, I said. And this time we hold the pen. The arena lights faded behind us as Lily and I were whisked through a service tunnel, the roar of the crowd muffled to a distant surf. My phone kept vibrating, Rebecca's name flashing, then unknown numbers, then a single text from my mother. We need to talk, now. I silenced it, guided Lily to the waiting car, her small hand sticky with nerves and chocolate milk. The driver took us to the hotel under a sky bruised purple, the city's glow reflecting off the windshield like accusations. Lily fell asleep before we reached the freeway, her head against my thigh, the navy dress crumpled but unbroken. I stared out the window, the drive in my pocket burning hotter than the stage lights, Rebecca's live broadcast looping in my mind. The truth was out, but it felt like only the first note of a longer song. Morning brought chaos disguised as opportunity. Producers called at dawn, offering security, a new contract, a primetime slot for the finals. I let them talk, voice calm, while I booked the earliest flight home. Lily needed normalcy. Our cracked piano, our lumpy couch, the life we'd built, note by note. We landed in a drizzle that smelled of pine and regret. The apartment felt smaller. The walls crowded with the evidence I'd taped up weeks ago. I unpacked Lily's dress, hung it in the closet, and told her to rest. She obeyed without protest, exhaustion winning over questions. The hospital called at 3. My father had collapsed at the country club, heart attack, critical but stable. My mother's voice on the voicemail was clipped formal. He's asking for you. Bring the girl if you must. I stood in the kitchen, phone in one hand, the other clutching the counter. Lily watched from the hallway, eyes wide. Is Grandpa okay? He will be, I lied, because some lies are mercy. I packed an overnight bag, kissed her forehead, left her with Mrs. Henderson next door. The drive to the city was a blur of wipers and headlights, the radio silent. I arrived at the ICU as visiting hours ended, badge already waiting at the desk, my mother's doing. The room smelled of antiseptic and wilted flowers. Machines beeped in steady rhythm, tubes snaking from my father's arms to bags that dripped life back into him. He looked smaller under the thin blanket skin, translucent, the man who'd once loomed like a judge, now reduced to a patient. My mother stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed, pearls glowing against her black sweater. She didn't speak when I entered, just nodded toward the chair. I sat. My father's eyes fluttered open, cloudy but focused. Emma. He rasped the words, scraping his throat. A nurse adjusted his oxygen, then left us alone. My mother moved to the window, back turned, as though the parking lot held answers. He reached for my hand. His fingers were cold, papery. I listened, he said. To the broadcast, the heartbeat. His chest hitched. I knew it was yours. I stayed silent, waiting. He pressed something into my palm, a mini recorder, silver, no bigger than a matchbox. Recorded this the night you left. Meant to destroy it. Couldn't. His grip tightened. Play it. I hesitated, then pressed play. His voice filled the room, younger, steadier, dated March 2011. If anyone hears this, know I acted to protect the family. The scholarship was rerouted, Emma's signature forged to the foundation. The birth certificate altered. We erased her to save face. I thought it was mercy. A pause, then a newborn's cry. Lily's first thin and fierce. The recording ended with a click. My mother whirled from the window. That's nonsense. He was under duress. Pain medication. My father ignored her. The lullaby, he whispered. I sang it to you in the NICU when you were born premature. You were so small, fists clenched like you already knew the world would fight you. I taught you the melody. You taught her. His eyes found mine wet. I stole your future to buy silence. I was wrong. I closed my fist around the recorder. Why now? Because I'm dying, he said simply. And because she kept your song alive. My mother's voice cut sharp. You'll regret this. The foundation, the interviews, everything we built. He looked at her exhausted. We built nothing. We buried. The machines beeped faster. A nurse rushed in, checked monitors, adjusted drips. My mother followed her out, muttering about lawyers. I stayed the recorder heavy in my pocket, my father's confession looping in my head. His eyes closed, breathing shallow. I leaned close. I forgive you, I said the words, surprising us both. But forgiveness isn't forgetting. He nodded, a tear slipping into his hair. The nurse returned, gestured me out. In the hallway, my mother waited, face carved from ice. This changes nothing, she hissed. The world will see you for the opportunist you are. I walked past her, the recorder warm against my ribs. Outside, the drizzle had turned to sleet, stinging my cheeks. I sat in the car, played the confession again, Lily's cry echoing in the dark. The truth was no longer a weapon. It was a bridge, fragile but real. My phone buzzed, Rebecca. Final slot confirmed. Bring the tape. I stared at the hospital lights, my father's whisper still in my ears. She kept your song alive. The sleet thickened into a curtain as I pulled away from the hospital. The mini recorder a hot coal in my pocket. My father's confession looping like a fever dream. I drove on autopilot wipers, struggling the city lights smearing into watercolor grief. Lily was waiting at Mrs. Henderson's, probably curled on the couch with cocoa and cartoons, unaware that the ground beneath our lives had shifted again. I needed airspace, a moment to process before I faced her questions. I parked under the overpass engine, ticking in the cold, and called the only number that made sense. Rebecca answered on the first ring. Where are you? No greeting, just urgency. 20 minutes out. Meet me at the apartment. She was already there when I arrived, trench coat dusted with ice, pacing the cracked sidewalk. Mrs. Henderson waved from her window, curious but polite. I ushered Rebecca inside, locked the door, and handed Lily's spare key to the neighbor with a whispered thank you. The apartment smelled of chamomile and printer ink, my evidence wall glowing under the desk lamp. Rebecca's eyes swept the timelines, the red string, the forged documents pinned like butterflies. You weren't replaced, she said, voice flat with shock. You were erased. I nodded, throat tight. The birth certificate. My name scratched out, yours typed over. They filed it the day Lily was born. She sank onto the couch folder in her lap, the one she'd shown me in LA. I thought I was the spare. The perfect daughter they adopted to fix the scandal. She opened the folder, pulled a second certificate, hers pristine stamped, approved. But look. She pointed to the file number. Same sequence as yours. They didn't adopt me. They rewrote you out of existence and slapped my name on the paperwork to open accounts. The foundation, the trust, the offshore holdings, all in Rebecca Carter's name. I've been their ghost for 28 years. I sat beside her, the couch springs groaning. They used you to launder the theft, and to launder their shame. Her laugh was hollow. I was the scholarship kid in boarding school, the debutante at the gala, the face on the brochure. I thought I earned it. Turns out I was collateral. The room felt smaller, the walls pressing in with decades of lies. I pulled the mini recorder from my pocket, set it between us. My father confessed tonight. Heart attack. He's dying. I pressed play. His voice filled the space, frail but clear, the forged signature, the altered certificate, the lullaby guilt. Rebecca listened without moving, tears tracking her cheeks. When it ended, she wiped her face with the sleeve of her coat. I did the voice, she said quietly. I stared. What voice? The NBC call. The raspy woman who said we'd met before. That was me. AI generated from old voicemails of Ryan's mother. I wanted to rattle them, force a reaction. I didn't know it would lead here. She gestured at the wall. The tape's the truth. I thought I was exposing fraud. Turns out I was exposing family. The word hung between us, fragile as the sleet tapping the window. Family. Not blood, but choice. I reached for her hand. She let me take it. We end this together, I said. National TV. The finals. We walk on that stage and play every recording show, every document. Let the world see what they did. Rebecca's grip tightened. They'll fight. Lawyers' injunctions spin. Let them try. I stood, pulled the evidence boxes from under the bed. We have originals, witnesses, Holtz's affidavit, my father's confession, and Lily's song. She nodded, eyes fierce. I'll bring the press badges. Channel 5 owes me a favor. We worked through the night, scanning, uploading, scripting. Rebecca drafted a timeline for the broadcast, bullet points sharp as scalpels. I labeled tapes, cross-referenced dates, burned backups to drives hidden in cereal boxes. Lily woke once, padded in with blanket trailing, climbed into my lap without a word. Rebecca paused, watched us, something soft breaking across her face. She's the reason, I whispered. All of it. Rebecca knelt eye level with Lily. Hey, superstar. Want to help your aunts take down the bad guys? Lily yawned, nodded. With music. With everything, Rebecca said. Dawn crept in, gray and determined. We had a plan: fly to LA the day before the finals, rehearse with the producers under the guise of a family reunion segment, then hijack the live feed. Rebecca would introduce the evidence. I would play the tapes. Lily would sing the heartbeat into the final chord. The network would fight, but the audience, millions strong, would demand the truth. Rebecca packed the last folder, zipped her bag. One more thing. She pulled a locket from her pocket, silver engraved with a tiny piano. My adoptive mother. Your mother gave me this when I turned 16. Said it belonged to her first daughter. I think it was yours. I opened it. Inside, a baby photo, me, premature fists clenched the lullaby already in my blood. I closed it, pressed it to my heart. Rebecca stood at the doorcoat, button ready for war. Let's end this where it began, on that stage. Rebecca's silhouette vanished into the dawn, coat collar turned up against the sleet, the locket's chain glinting once before the door shut. Lily stirred on the couch, murmured something about pianos with wings, and settled back into sleep. I stood in the quiet, the apartment humming with the weight of what we'd built overnight, a dossier thick enough to bury empires, a plan sharp enough to cut through decades of varnish. But as the radiator clanked and the snow hissed against the window, a different certainty settled in my chest. Revenge didn't need a stage. It needed silence. I brewed coffee, strong and black, and sat at the kitchen table with the evidence spread like a deck of cards. The forged birth certificate, the bank transfers, Holtz's affidavit, my father's dying confession on the mini recorder, the 2011 cassette with Lily's heartbeat. I photographed each page under the desk lamp, uploaded encrypted copies to 3 separate clouds, then printed fresh sets on plain paper. No headlines, no live feed, just facts mailed to the people who wore badges instead of ratings. By noon, I was at the post office, 3 manila envelopes addressed to the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit in Manhattan. Inside the first, the cassette labeled in my own handwriting, Emma Carter, March 2011. Inside the second, the forged documents highlighted, annotated, cross-referenced. Inside the third, a single USB drive with every digital file plus a cover letter on plain stationery, to whom it may concern. Enclosed are original records of fraud, forgery, and embezzlement committed in 2011 by parents' full names. The funds originated from my Juilliard scholarship and were rerouted the day my daughter was born. Please investigate. No publicity requested. Emma Carter. I paid for tracking no return address and walked out into the slush without looking back. The clerk's radio played a weather report, storm moving out, skies clearing by evening. I took it as a sign. The fallout began quietly. 3 days later, my mother's name vanished from the country club's charity gala invite list. No announcement, just a blank space where her title had been. The foundation's website went dark, replaced by a generic under-maintenance page. A neighbor texted a photo of a black SUV parked outside the mansion. 2 men in suits knocking on the door my parents refused to answer. I deleted the text, turned off my phone, and took Lily to the community center for her lesson. We didn't speak of it. She practiced scales while I tuned the upright, the sticky G-sharp finally behaving. She asked once, "Are Grandma and Grandpa mad?" I answered. "They're learning consequences." She nodded, accepting it the way children accept gravity. A week later, the local paper ran a single paragraph on page 7. Federal agents seized documents in ongoing investigation. Local philanthropists cooperating. No names, but the address matched the mansion. The country club canceled its spring auction. Board members resigned. The Rebecca Carter Foundation dissolved overnight, its remaining funds frozen pending audit. My parents' assets, accounts, properties, the offshore trusts, locked tighter than the safe I'd cracked open months ago. No press conference. No tears on morning shows. Just silence, thick and final. Lily noticed the shift in subtler ways. The mean girl at school stopped bragging about her grandmother's gala tickets. The grocery clerk slipped us an extra loaf of bread. Mrs. Henderson left a casserole on the doorstep with a note, "Proud of you both." I baked the bread into French toast, told Lily it was celebration food. She ate 3 pieces, asked for seconds, and practiced her new song until the streetlights came on. The song was called "Forgiveness Sounds Like Music." She'd written it in the margins of her math homework lyrics about locked doors that open when you stop knocking. We rehearsed in the laundry room, her voice echoing off concrete, my harmony threading underneath like roots. No cameras, no confetti, just us, the upright, and the truth we no longer needed to shout. AGT called on a Thursday voice, cautious. We'd love a low-key performance for the pre-finals special. Intimate venue, no judges, just Lily and piano. Charity live stream. I agreed before they finished the sentence. The venue was a converted warehouse, downtown, brick walls, string lights, 200 folding chairs. We arrived early. Lily in her navy dress patch, proudly visible, me in the black sweater I'd worn to the hospital. The crew set up a single microphone. No jumbotron, no heartbeat lights. Perfect. The room filled slowly. Neighbors, students, a few reporters who'd promised silence. Lily took the stage at dusk, the warehouse windows glowing orange. She sat, adjusted the bench, and began. The first notes were soft, almost shy, then. Her voice entered clear, unadorned, carrying every scar we'd earned. I stood beside the piano, hands resting on the wood, adding harmony when the chorus lifted. The audience leaned forward, phones, dark breaths held. When she sang the bridge, "Forgiveness isn't quiet, it just doesn't need the noise." A woman in the back row began to cry. By the final chord, the room was weeping, clapping, standing. No golden buzzer, just grace earned in the dark. We bowed, mother and daughter, the warehouse rafters echoing our names. The live stream chat scrolled with hearts, not headlines. Donations poured in for the music scholarship we'd started in secret, Lily's name on the plaque, no foundation required. We left through the side door, snow crunching under our boots, the night air sharp with pine and possibility. A man waited in the shadows, suit, crisp briefcase polished. He stepped forward, extended a card. AGT Legal, embossed in gold. "Miss Carter," he said, voice low. "We need to talk about the dedication on that screen. And the man who sent it." The business card felt heavier than its embossed gold lettering suggested, the man's eyes steady under the warehouse's exit sign. I slipped it into my pocket without reading the name, thanked him with a nod that promised nothing, and guided Lily through the snow-dusted alley to our waiting ride. She hummed the final bars of Forgiveness Sounds Like Music, her breath fogging the window, unaware that the night had only paused, not ended. I kept the card's edges between my fingers all the way home, the lawyer's words looping like a skipped record. The dedication. The man who sent it. I tucked Lily into bed, kissed her forehead, and sat at the kitchen table until dawn, the card glowing under the lamp like a coal I couldn't decide whether to swallow or spit out. The finals were scheduled for a Saturday in May, the air thick with lilacs and second chances. We flew to Los Angeles under clear skies, Lily clutching a new composition notebook filled with songs she'd written in the margins of her life. The auditorium was a cathedral of light and sound, 10,000 seats climbing into rafters painted with hope. Backstage smelled of hairspray and adrenaline, contestants pacing in sequins and sneakers. Lily wore the navy dress patch, now a badge of honor, her curls tamed with a ribbon I'd sewn from my old recital gown. I stood in the wings, heart hammering a rhythm older than her heartbeat tape. The show unfolded like a fever dream. Acts blurred acrobats, ventriloquists. A boy who sang opera in falsetto. Lily was penultimate, the slot reserved for frontrunners. She walked the stage alone, piano gleaming under a single spotlight, and sat without flourish. The host asked her song choice. Home, she said, voice clear as the bell that ends recess. The arena hushed. She began with a single note, low and resonant, then built a melody that felt like walking through rooms you'd forgotten you loved. Her voice entered soft telling of locked doors and open windows, of mothers who carried storms in their pockets, and daughters who turned them into music. The audience leaned forward as one organism. I felt the shift the moment the song became larger than the stage. When she reached the bridge about a girl who was never born but sang anyway, the jumbotron flickered. Words appeared in simple white text, dedicated to the girl who was never born. The crowd gasped. Phones rose. Lily didn't falter. She leaned into the final chorus, voice soaring the piano, answering with chords that cracked open the sky. The last note hung suspended, then resolved into silence so complete I heard my own heartbeat. Then the arena erupted, standing roaring, a wave of sound that lifted us both. Golden confetti fell slower this time, catching the lights like tears frozen mid-fall. The host declared her the winner before the judges spoke, the title card flashing, Lily Carter AGT Kids Champion. I ran to her, lifted her off the bench, her legs wrapping my waist as confetti stuck to our hair. Cameras flashed, but the moment was ours. She whispered against my neck, "We did it, Mom." I couldn't answer. The lump in my throat was too large. The victory lap was a blur. Interviews, photos, a trophy heavy enough to anchor ships. We were scheduled to fly home at dawn, but my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "He's gone. Come to the cemetery." I knew without asking. My father. We changed flights, landed in a downpour that turned the tarmac silver. The cemetery was a sea of black umbrellas, the grave already prepared under a tent that flapped like a wounded bird. My mother stood alone, coat-soaked hair plastered to her skull. She didn't look up when we approached, Lily's hand in mine, the trophy left in the car, because some moments don't need gold. The casket was closed, mahogany gleaming wet. The minister spoke of legacy and grace, words that felt borrowed. When he finished, my mother stepped forward, placed a small wooden box on the casket lid. It was the one from my childhood bedroom, the one that held my first recital program. A lock of baby hair, a photo of me at 3 with fingers splayed on piano keys. She opened it, removed the photo, and pressed it to her lips before tucking it inside the casket. Her shoulders shook, but no sound escaped. Rain fell harder, drumming the tent like impatient fingers. Lily tugged my sleeve. "Grandma's crying." I nodded, throat tight. My mother turned, eyes red, and met my gaze for the first time in years. "I was wrong," she said, voice raw. "About everything." She reached for Lily, hesitated, then pulled her into a hug that smelled of wet wool and regret. Lily let her small arms circling back. I stood apart, the rain soaking my coat, and felt something loosen inside my chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but space where anger had lived. The burial ended quickly. Umbrellas dispersed. My mother lingered, box now empty in her hands. She offered it to me. For her, she said, nodding at Lily. When she's ready. I took it, the wood warm from her grip. We walked to the car in silence, rain easing to a mist that smelled of turned earth and lilacs. That night, back in this apartment, Lily placed the trophy on the piano, the wooden box beside it. She opened the box, found a single item my mother had left, a cassette tape labeled Emma, age 3. We played it on the old player. My toddler voice lisping through Twinkle Twinkle, my father's laughter in the background. Lily smiled, eyes shining. We sound the same. I pulled her close, felt the lightness I'd carried since the cemetery settle into something permanent. The rain had stopped. Moonlight spilled through the window, turning the trophy silver. For the first time in years, the apartment felt large enough for tomorrow. A knock at the door broke the quiet. The man from AGT Legal stood on the matte umbrella, dripping the same card extended. "Your past isn't finished, Miss Carter," he said, voice low. "There's someone who needs to meet Lily. And you." The lawyer's umbrella dripped a steady rhythm onto the welcome mat, each drop a question mark. I stepped aside without thinking, the apartment's warmth rushing past me into the night. Lily appeared behind me in her rocket ship pajamas, trophy still clutched like a teddy bear. The man's eyes softened when he saw her, then returned to me, steady and unreadable. I closed the door, the click loud in the quiet. He removed his coat, folded it over one arm, and extended the business card again. This time I took it. Alexander Holtz, SQ. The name hit like a chord I'd forgotten I knew. Ryan's son. I said the words, tasting of rust and rain. He nodded once. Born 2012. Different mother. Same guilt. His voice was low-cultured, the kind that belonged in boardrooms, not my cramped living room with its peeling wallpaper and piano that needed tuning. Lily tilted her head, curious but unafraid. I gestured to the couch. He sat briefcase on his knees and opened it with the reverence of someone handling relics. Lily climbed onto the ottoman, trophy balanced on her lap. "Are you here about the golden confetti?" she asked. Alexander smiled, small and sad. "Something better." He pulled a thick envelope, wax seal broken, and a slim CD case. The envelope bore Ryan's handwriting, slanted and urgent, the same script that had once signed love letters I'd burned. I took it with fingers that wouldn't stop trembling. Alexander waited while I slit the seal, unfolded pages crisp with legal jargon, and something softer underneath. He began reading aloud, voice steady. "I, Ryan Michael Holtz, being of sound mind, do hereby bequeath my entire estate, real property investments, intellectual rights, and liquid assets to the Lily Carter Music Foundation to be established upon my death for the purpose of providing instruments and lessons to children who cannot afford them." He paused. Let the words settle. Estimated value $47 million. No contingencies. No trustees but Emma Carter. The room tilted. Lily's trophy slipped, clattered to the floor. I caught the pages before they scattered, my name repeated in black ink like a heartbeat. Alexander continued. "Further, I direct that all royalties from the composition, Emma's Lullaby, recorded March 2011, be assigned in perpetuity to the foundation." He looked up. He wrote it the week he left. Never released it. Kept it in a safe deposit box with instructions to deliver upon his passing. Lily picked up the trophy, hugged it to her chest. 47 million pianos. Alexander's laugh was soft. Enough for a few. He handed me the CD case. The label was handwritten in Ryan's script, Emma's Lullaby, 2011. A sticky note clung to the plastic. To the poor girl who made us rich in heart. I opened the case with fingers that felt borrowed. The disc gleamed silver, unplayed, waiting. Alexander leaned forward. He recorded it in a studio the night before he disappeared. "Use the cassette you made, the one with the heartbeat." Layered guitar over it, his voice barely above a whisper. Said it was the only way he could stay without staying. I pressed the disc to my chest, felt the cool plastic through my sweater. Lily reached for it, curious. I let her hold it, her small fingers tracing the sticky note. He knew about me. Every day, Alexander said. He followed the audition clips, the warehouse performance, the finals. Watched from a distance, never interfered. The dedication on the screen, the girl who was never born, that was him. Hired a tech to upload it remotely. Wanted you to know he saw. The apartment's single lamp cast long shadows, the piano silent for once. I thought of Ryan in some anonymous city alone with his guilt, writing a will that gave away everything to a child he'd never held. I thought of the boy beside me, 13, maybe 14, carrying a father's absence like a second skin. Lily set the CD on the coffee table, aligned it with the trophy. Can we play it? Alexander hesitated, then nodded. I found the old boombox in the closet, the one that still ate batteries like candy. I slid the disc and pressed play. The first notes were guitar soft as breath, then Ryan's voice, older, rougher, but unmistakably his. He sang the lullaby I'd hummed to my belly, the one my father had taught me, the one Lily had woven into her winning song. Underneath, faint but unmistakable, the heartbeat, 140 beats per minute, the rhythm of a life he'd walked away from but never stopped hearing. When it ended, the room was heavier with silence than sound. Lily's eyes shone. He sounded sad. He was, Alexander said, but he was proud. I closed the boombox, the click final. Why now? Alexander pulled a second envelope thinner. He died 3 months ago. Cancer. Quick. Left instructions for delivery after the finals. Said you'd need the win first. He stood, briefcase in hand. The foundation paperwork is ready. Sign when you're prepared. No rush. Lily walked him to the door, trophy under one arm, CD under the other. Will you come to the first concert? He knelt eye level. Wouldn't miss it. He shook her hands solemnly, then mine. At the threshold he paused, voice barely above the radiator's hum. My father never met Lily, but he heard her heartbeat. The door shut. The apartment settled into its familiar creaks and sighs. Lily placed the CD beside the wooden box from the grave, the trophy between them like a bridge. She opened the box, found the toddler cassette, and lined it up too. 3 generations of music, 3 containers of truth. I sat on the couch, the will pages in my lap, the sticky notes words glowing in the lamplight. $47 million. A foundation. A lullaby. Ryan's redemption delivered by a son who looked nothing like him and everything like forgiveness. Lily climbed beside me, head on my shoulder. We're rich now, she said, not a question. In every way that matters, I answered. Outside, the moon hung full and indifferent, casting silver across the piano keys. I felt the weight of tomorrow settle gently, not as burden, but as possibility. The past had spoken its final note. The future was ours to play. The moon slid behind a cloud, as Lily and I sat in the hush that follows revelation. The CD case, wooden box, and trophy forming a small altar on the coffee table. She traced the sticky notes words with a fingertip, mouthing them like a prayer, then looked up at me with eyes that had seen too much and still believed in tomorrow. I tucked a curl behind her ear, felt the weight of $47 million settle, not as burden, but as wings. We slept eventually, limbs tangled on the couch, the apartment's familiar creaks a lullaby older than any recording. Morning brought paperwork and possibility, but the gala was months away, a horizon we would reach note by note. Summer unfolded in quiet triumphs. The Lily Carter Music Foundation opened its doors in a renovated warehouse downtown, brick walls, painted sunshine yellow pianos of every size waiting for small hands. Children arrived with backpacks and dreams, some in sneakers with holes, some in uniforms pressed by grandmothers. Lily taught the beginners her patience, endless her laugh, the first sound they learned to trust. I handled the books, signed checks that once would have bought silence, now buying scales and hope. Rebecca visited on weekends, sleeves rolled, teaching journalism to teens who wanted to tell their own stories. We never spoke of the mansion or the frozen accounts. The past had been audited and closed. My mother wrote once a single page on heavy stationery, no return address. I read it in the office while Lily practiced next door. She spoke of hospital corridors, of my father's final days, of the wooden box she'd filled with regrets too late to return. She asked for nothing offered, nothing, simply signed her name. I folded the letter, slipped it into the box beside the toddler cassette, and let it rest. Some doors close without slamming. The gala was scheduled for September, the anniversary of Lily's first audition. We chose the old auditorium where she'd won, now restored with foundation funds, velvet seats, reupholstered chandeliers gleaming like forgiveness. Invitations went to every child who'd ever taken a lesson, every donor who believed music could mend what money broke. The theme was simple: home. Lily designed the program, her handwriting on every page. I chose the dress code: come as you are. The night arrived crisp and starlit. The lobby filled with laughter and the clink of cider glasses. Children chasing balloons, parents wiping tears before the lights dimmed. Lily wore a new dress, navy again, but this time silk, the patch replaced by embroidered stars. I wore black, the same sweater from the hospital, now soft with washing. Rebecca stood at the door, greeting arrivals. Her press badge traded for a foundation pin shaped like a treble clef. The program began with students. A shy boy playing Heart and Soul with one finger. A girl duo singing harmony they'd learned in the laundry room. Each performance earned applause that shook the rafters. Then the stage lights dimmed to a single spot. Lily walked out alone, sat at the grand piano, and began Home. The melody was the same one that had won the finals, but slower now, richer, layered with everything we'd carried. She sang of doorsteps and detours, of mothers who taught strength by breaking, of daughters who built bridges with song. The audience leaned forward. Breaths held the room, a single heartbeat. Halfway through the bridge, a figure moved in the wings. My mother, thinner hair silvered, wearing a simple gray dress that cost less than her pearls once had. She hesitated, then stepped into the light. Lily didn't stop. She nodded once, a silent invitation. My mother approached the piano, hands trembling, and began to sing the lullaby my father had hummed 40 years ago, the one that lived in my bones and Lily's blood. Her voice was cracked, but true, weaving under lilies like roots under soil. I stood frozen in the wings, tears sliding hot down my cheeks. Forgiveness rising not as words, but as music. The final chord resolved into silence so complete the chandeliers seemed to hold their breath. Then the audience rose, a wave of sound and tears clapping that shook dust from the rafters. Lily stood, bowed, my mother beside her, their hands finding each other without looking. I walked on stage, joined them, the three of us, a crooked constellation under the spotlight. The jumbotron flickered to life, words appearing in simple white text. Once a poor girl chasing rich dreams. Now the reason we all believe in grace again. The applause swelled, a standing ovation that carried us off stage and into the lobby, where children hugged their parents and strangers embraced. My mother lingered, eyes wet. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. "You're here," I said. "That's enough." She nodded, pressed something into my hand, a key, small and brass, the one from the study safe. "For whatever comes next," she said, then slipped into the crowd. Lily tugged my sleeve. "Mom, look." She pointed to the screen above the dessert table, still cycling the final line. Once they called her the poor girl. Now she's the reason we all believe in grace again. I pulled her close, felt the circle close. Justice and grace braided tight. The past had spoken its final note. The future was ours to play. The moon slid behind a cloud as Lily and I sat in the hush that follows revelation, the CD case, wooden box, and trophy forming a small altar on the coffee table. She traced the sticky notes' words with a fingertip, mouthing them like a prayer. Then looked up at me with eyes that had seen too much and still believed in tomorrow. I tucked a curl behind her ear. Felt the weight of $47 million settle, not as burden, but as wings. We slept eventually, limbs tangled on the couch. The apartment's familiar creaks, a lullaby older than any recording. Morning brought paperwork and possibility, but the gala was months away. A horizon we would reach note by note. Summer unfolded in quiet triumphs. The Lily Carter Music Foundation opened its doors in a renovated warehouse downtown, brick walls painted sunshine yellow, pianos of every size waiting for small hands. Children arrived with backpacks and dreams, some in sneakers with holes, some in uniforms pressed by grandmothers. Lily taught the beginners her patience endless, her laugh the first sound they learned to trust. I handled the book's signed checks that once would have bought silence, now buying scales and hope. Rebecca visited on weekends, sleeves rolled, teaching journalism to teens who wanted to tell their own stories. We never spoke of the mansion or the frozen accounts. The past had been audited and closed. My mother wrote once a single page on heavy stationery, no return address. I read it in the office while Lily practiced next door. She spoke of hospital corridors, of my father's final days, of the wooden box she'd filled with regrets too late to return. She asked for nothing, offered nothing. Simply signed her name. I folded the letter, slipped it into the box beside the toddler cassette, and let it rest. Some doors close without slamming. The gala was scheduled for September, the anniversary of Lily's first audition. We chose the old auditorium where she'd won, now restored with foundation funds, velvet seats, reupholstered chandeliers gleaming like forgiveness. Invitations went to every child who'd ever taken a lesson, every donor who believed music could mend what money broke. The theme was simple: home. Lily designed the program, her handwriting on every page. I chose the dress code: come as you are. The night arrived crisp and starlit. The lobby filled with laughter and the clink of cider glasses, children chasing balloons, parents wiping tears before the lights dimmed. Lily wore a new dress, navy again, but this time silk, the patch replaced by embroidered stars. I wore black, the same sweater from the hospital, now soft with washing. Rebecca stood at the door, greeting arrivals. Her press badge traded for a foundation pin shaped like a treble clef. The program began with students. A shy boy playing Heart and Soul with one finger. A girl duo singing harmony they'd learned in the laundry room. Each performance earned applause that shook the rafters. Then the stage lights dimmed to a single spot. Lily walked out alone, sat at the grand piano, and began. Home. The melody was the same one that had won the finals, but slower now. Richer, layered with everything we'd carried. She sang of doorsteps and detours, of mothers who taught strength by breaking, of daughters who built bridges with song. The audience leaned forward. Breaths held the room, a single heartbeat. Halfway through the bridge, a figure moved in the wings. My mother, thinner hair silvered, wearing a simple gray dress that cost less than her pearls once had. She hesitated, then stepped into the light. Lily didn't stop. She nodded once, a silent invitation. My mother approached the piano, hands trembling, and began to sing the lullaby my father had hummed 40 years ago, the one that lived in my bones and Lily's blood. Her voice was cracked, but true, weaving under lilies like roots under soil. I stood frozen in the wings, tears sliding hot down my cheeks. Forgiveness rising not as words, but as music. The final chord resolved into silence. So complete, the chandeliers seemed to hold their breath. Then the audience rose, a wave of sound, and tears clapping that shook dust from the rafters. Lily stood, bowed, my mother beside her, their hands finding each other without looking. I walked on stage, joined them, the three of us, a crooked constellation under the spotlight. The jumbotron flickered to life, words appearing in simple white text. Once a poor girl chasing rich dreams. Now the reason we all believe in grace again. The applause swelled, a standing ovation that carried us off stage and into the lobby where children hugged their parents and strangers embraced. My mother lingered, eyes wet. I don't deserve this, she whispered. You're here, I said. That's enough. She nodded, pressed something into my hand, a key small and brass, the one from the study safe. For whatever comes next, she said, then slipped into the crowd. Lily tugged my sleeve. Mom, look. She pointed to the screen above the dessert table, still cycling the final line. Once they called her the poor girl. Now she's the reason we all believe in grace again. I pulled her close, felt the circle close, justice and grace braided tight. The past had spoken its final note. The future was ours to play. If this story of betrayal turned to triumph of a single mother and her daughter rewriting their legacy through music moved you the way it moved thousands in that auditorium, hit subscribe now and ring the bell so you never miss the next chapter of real-life redemption. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever turned pain into purpose? What moment made you stand and clap for someone else's grace? Your stories fuel this channel, and together we keep the music alive.